I'm going to say this very slow. Racism is a type of witchcraft. Racism is a type of spell casting. Racism is a type of ritual. Yes, it is systematic injustice and all that other stuff. But hear me when I say that it started out as some weird occult nonsense. When you study the history of the people in power that orchestrated everything that we're going through, all the way back to the Portuguese and Spain and the split of the Prime Meridian, there has always been occultic forces. The word occult means hidden culture. The word cult means system of beliefs. What they believe, and listen to me, is that the black race, right, represents the old world. You can look this up. Look up the Theophany Society, okay? Look up the Knights of the Rose Order. Look up the Golden Circle. Like, for real, I'm being dead serious. Y'all don't really understand why these people believe in racism so much. It's not just hate, it's a religion. It is a form of ritual, okay? And the original forces of this world, especially through the 16 and 1700s, that started the mechanism of which we're dealing with today, is because this is a ritual, a form of destiny swapping, okay? When you read The Observation Concerning Mankind, People, and the Countries by Benjamin Franklin, written in 1755, you go to the last page, I think it's 224, he literally says that they brought Europeans over to America as a ritual for the gods of Mars and Venus, to homogenize them under the banner of whiteness to make a new people. He dead ass says that. And he says that he wants to take the sons of Africa and remove them from America. Okay? It was always a ritual, right? Isn't that why we have the apotheosis of George Washington in the Capitol building? You can look up and see him being depicted as a whole deity. Isn't that why the Washington Monument is the same as Osiris and it represents a phallic symbol? Is that why we have Greco-Roman structures all across this country representing the gods and deities of antiquity? Is this why JBL, Jet Propulsion Laboratories, which was foundational in NASA and sending us to the moon, founders were also occultists? Same with Henry Ford. Same with all the companies. The people that built New York were occultists, and that's why that's such a hub for all of this stuff. What are we talking about here? What are we talking about here? Because in reality, when you look up the definition of Negro from the 19th century Britannica, what you see is that it was an exonym that didn't just mean people in Africa. It was Malaysia, Australia, the Polynesian Islands, and Asia, right? So, and that represents the old world. That represents the East. So if you don't understand what racism really is, it's a form of destiny swapping. It's a form of making the majority the minority, giving power to the minority. This is why they're always talking about the great replacement theory and how the white race is dying out and they're not having children. They're being replaced by black and brown immigrants. They have been talking about this stuff for the last 400 years. And everything you've been seeing has to do with this fear. And they are literally using whole ass magic, witchcraft, to do it, to switch the dynamics of power, whether you believe in it or not. Racism is deeper than a form of systemic power within a caste system used to subjugate different people based on phenotypical expression. You look like this, so you're treated this way. Yes, that is the case. But there is a spiritual component to it, and this is why we can't get rid of it. Because people worship it, right? And what we have to understand is that the word Negro is really synergized with the alchemic word negrito or negredo. And they are trying to, off of the unaliving and mass destruction of black and brown civilizations. That's why the continent of Africa has been how it's been. That's why we're invading the global south, going into South America, attacking these countries. Because in reality, what is going on is that through the destruction of black and brown people, the white race will be able to transmute themselves into a new technocratic world where they fuse themselves with technology, transhumanism, with cybernetic enhancement, become the new pure race that's immortal, and they're cybernetically controlled to all technology, so they have access to all knowledge, and they're connected to all the drones and cameras, so they have pseudo omnipresence. And they'll be able to fling their arm and open up a door because it's all going to be automated. They'll be able to flick their hand and make money appear in your account like they're a deity because everything's going to be controlled through cryptocurrency. They're manufacturing the situation to literally make themselves God on earth. This is what they believe. So while, yes, racism and systematic injustice that all people deal with sucks within this prejudice infrastructure, but there is a mystic component to it. You know, even when we get into the word Caucasian, the reason why we call white people Caucasian, even though there's like an actual Asiatic type race in that area that's a little bit more darker or tan or whatever, is because they thought there was a piece of the Noah's Ark in the Caucasus Mountains. So by calling Europeans Caucasian, that was a way, and back then during the era of pseudoscience, where they could connect their lineage to Adam. I'm being so dead serious. So whether you're religious or not, that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is to educate you on what the people in power believe and the function of racism and how they practice it as a spiritual belief of superiority. The Ku Klux Klan, they literally called themselves Grand Wizards, right? At the end of the day, all these groups perform rituals to invoke fear, to hold power. To hold power. And that is textbook magic. For people who understand what magic actually is, then you know these people are performing magic. Straight up. Straight up. And racism is a complex form of spellcasting. It is. And we have to be aware of it because the stuff we're seeing and how they're trying to shift power, war is always the energy, the unaliving of all those bodies is always what they need to change the world. Like they did in World War I, World War II, now they're trying to do it again. To usher in the age of transhumanism and cybernetic demigods that walk the earth. I hope you're ready.